Hello and welcome to the Confident Hypnotherapist podcast. My name is Lawrence Akers, and this week we are chatting with Mark Lakowske, a wonderful hypnotherapist from the US, and chatting about his I can't pronounce it. You'll find out more in his podcast. Stay listening. Lovely Mark, thank you so much for joining me today. It's been ages since we last saw each other. I think it was 2018?
2 years. It's been 2 years, too long.
Since we last had you in Melbourne, where you kindly taught us all your technique with that name that I still struggle to say.
I still screw it up.
Bono, chastity.
Pono.
Thank you. And
I know it's been way too long.
It has.
And the sad thing is I was supposed to be in Australia this month or November this year.
I know. I remember sending you a message saying, you look like you're coming back. Can we have you back in Melbourne?
And I would have been there in a heartbeat. And then, the plague happened.
Happened. We'll have to make sure we aim for 2021 or 2022, depending on when the borders reopen.
Right.
But I guess for these people who are watching this podcast or listening to it, who may not have experienced the wonder that is you.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
How do you describe to people what you do and the approach that you use?
Honestly, I try to keep it very simple for people. I simply tell them that I help people who feel stuck, because we all feel stuck in something. And I help people who feel stuck primarily with anxiety and depression, with trauma, with grief is what I kind of specialize in. But that's really what I do. And the processes that I use with people, I try to keep them as simple, as straightforward as possible, because I just find simple sometimes is better.
Yeah, absolutely. And, with the Ho'oponopono, am I saying it right?
All right, everyone together now.
Okay.
Opono.
Opono.
Pono.
Oh. With that,
that was.
How did you come across this approach, and what was it about it that resonated with you?
Well, I came across it. When I went to school. I went to school for 2 years at the Meta Institute and the School for and the International School for Therapeutic Coaching and Clinical Hypnosis, and I learned about it there. And we did it very basically. It was basically the basic prayer of, I'm sorry, please forgive me, thank you, I love you, and the tenets around that. And that's really where I learned about it there. And I liked the idea of healing whatever needed to be healed in the world, in your situation, in whatever, through healing yourself. Because, as coaches and hypnotists, we all know that everything comes from thought. Our reality comes from us first. Yep. And so if we want to start affecting positive change outwardly in different situations and areas of our life, we have to look inward. Because, all of our answers are right up here in our noggin, right here in our heart. And we don't look there first, and I like that idea of Ho'oponopono. And that's really how I got introduced to the whole idea and the concept of just letting whatever it is go.
Yeah.
I was talking to Karen Bird this morning a little bit, and we were talking a little bit about this, and most people know that phrase, give it to God. It's the same thing with this, really. Yeah. It's giving it over and getting it out of yourself and letting it resolve.
I tend to have a similar kind of acceptance thing, which is simply, it is what it is.
It is what it is.
And, you know, for me, that I find enormous strength out of that when I'm in challenging moments.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. You know, sometimes we get in our own way and we make what we're dealing with so much bigger than it actually is.
Mm.
You know, someone once described this to me, and I loved how they did it. They took a dime. I don't know. You guys don't have dimes, do you?
No.
What's the small coin? What's the smallest coin?
The smallest coin is a 5 cent nowadays.
Okay, so they would take a 5 cent, and they would take that little tiny 5 cent, and they would hold it really close to their eye, and they said, "Look, with this close to your eye, can you see past it?"
Mm.
No. Well, that 5 cent looks huge when it's so close. And they said, now move it away. And that's really what Ho'oponopono does. It helps you to take that problem that was so close to you, that looked so enormous,
Mm-hmm.
and move it out. And you can go, oh, well, it's just this small little thing. I can deal with that.
Mm.
It's almost like chunking it down.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
What about when you started off as being a hypnotherapist early on? You know, what were you like when you first started? Were you full of confidence and, you know, happy, next, let's solve the problem? Or did you find that it was a lot of self-exploration for you too?
I was a freaking hot mess.
Don't hold back there.
No. I mean, honestly, I was. I mean, you know, you go through school and you go through your training and you get so much education, but then all of a sudden when the first client comes in, I don't know about you, but I went into going, I know what I'm doing hypnotically and coaching wise, but can I help this person?
Yeah.
You know, and then you do, and it's like, oh, wow, I guess I can.
Mm.
And, you know, I don't know about you, but I think what we do, you really kind of have to be thrown into the fire and just do it.
Yeah, absolutely.
You can train, you can read about it, but until you get going with clients, it's the only way you're going to learn what you need and what you need to change and tweak and get rid of altogether. Because I know that there's been some trainings that I've done that I'm like, this doesn't resonate with me, and this doesn't work with my clients in this way.
Mm.
So it's just kind of finding your own rhythm.
I think that's really good advice as well, because I agree that there's a challenge out there that people do course after course for a start and thinking that, you know, each course is potentially going to have the magic bullet that makes them a great hypnotherapist.
Right. I mean, well, ours will, but no.
Whereas, you know, I think Carl Smith is one person I can think of who, you know, definitely says stop going out looking for certificates and use what you know and make it uniquely your own. And I'm definitely hearing that from what you're saying there.
Yeah, use it as a blueprint. You know, I mean, you've been in my class. I tell people when I'm in my class, use this as a blueprint. Make it your own, because scripts are wonderful, but if you don't tailor them to the specific person, then it's not going to be as effective.
Yeah.
It'll be great, but let's make it more effective. Let's tailor everything.
I think also the big question is the magic in the words, or is the magic in how you offer the words?
I think the magic is in the rapport.
I think that's true as well, because if you're so focused on the words, are you really focused on the client?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because at the end of the day, it doesn't matter. I believe it doesn't matter what I do or what I say to you. What matters is what the client does and says for themselves based on my belief and holding them in possibility that they can do it.
Yeah. How do you build that belief?
In myself or them?
That belief in possibility.
That's a hard question for me, because I'm an eternal optimist and I see everything as being possible.
Yeah.
Personally. But, you know, it's really using that intuitive sense when you meet someone and after you get to talking to them, going, is this person willing to change? Do they want to change? What are you picking up from them? Because at the end of the day, if they don't want to change and do it, they're not going to.
Mm.
So it's finding those people, I think, who really, really want what we have to offer them, first of all, and then being able to see past the problem
Mm-hmm.
to be able to help them and see where they could be. See where they could be based on your structure and based on what you could do. And really, I don't know about you, but I know several hypnotists and coaches who, at the end of the day with clients, they're just drained because they take the client's problems on. And I think it's so important to remember, and this is part of that whole belief thing, is you have to be above the pit, reaching in to help them out. But if you're in the pit with them, you can't help them. So I think your belief is built up by you being above the pit. And I don't mean to have that sound like an ego thing or you're better than
no,
them.
not at all. It's not. It's, I think I completely get what you're saying there. Sometimes it's about even just reassuring them that there is the possibility of change, that there is the opportunity of change.
It's just holding them in that.
Exactly.
And being their cheerleader, really.
I've got the pom-poms, but I look terrible in the skirt. I really do look terrible in the skirt. What do you think, as a hypnotherapist, what do you think are the most important qualities to bring into a session with your client? You've spoken about some of them already, but are there other ones that come to mind?
Well, first of all, that was a really good segue out of that topic of the skirt. We'll get back to that later, because I do want to talk about that. But good qualities to bring into a session. I think, for me, I have a theater background. And so when I think of sessions, I don't necessarily think of them as sessions. I want to make them an event, because I want people to want to come to session. I want people to go, this is my time to relax, to rejuvenate, and enjoy themselves. I have one woman, she goes, oh my God, it's like going to the spa for my brain. And I love that, because I've gotten them so conditioned to, even when they touch the door of my building, they instantly start relaxing. So it's creating this environment for them that is warm and welcoming. And for some of my clients, especially the ones who have gone through major traumas, for some of them, they've told me, this is the space where I feel safe. This is the place where I feel heard. So I think it's and that really goes along that whole line of rapport.
Yeah,
it's creating, it's creating everything from the sights to the sounds to the smells. The moment they walk into the office, unfortunately, things have changed a little bit now with COVID. But the moment they walk in, they're hearing the music, they're smelling smells, and it's really making it an experience. Because think about, like, when you go to your doctor, how many people really like being there? But if your doctor's office was really enjoyable and an experience, it'd be a lot easier.
Yeah, I agree.
So I think just setting the tone right off the bat is a really, really huge thing for anyone to do. And there are ways you can do that, over Zoom or over the phone, pipe in music coming through. Tell your client to put on a scented candle or a wax warmer in the background. Make it a special time.
And it's funny you raise online, and we spoke about this just before we began this podcast. How did you find transitioning from, because I know even being around your energy in person, it's such vibrance and fun, and I imagine that your clients experience that as well. And that can be a little bit harder to communicate online or to transfer online. How did you find that experience of going from in person all the time to this online experience? And what do you think you'll take away from this as we transition back towards a new normal?
Right. Copious amounts of alcohol help.
Mhm.
No, I'm kidding. Um,
It's just coffee.
it's just coffee in here.
Yes.
Yeah.
The hot tip
Um,
is that if you blow on your coffee, you can drink anything. It could be vodka, it could be wine. Just go,
oh yeah.
oh, it's hot.
Yeah.
Yeah, there you go. Hot tip.
This is why we're friends. Uh, um, it definitely does present a new kind of learning curve with all of this. Um, but when we're talking about communication, tone is such a huge part of communication. Well, when you have nothing but voice over a phone or over a Zoom, then that tone is so important.
Mm.
And changing the voice when you're going into the hypnosis work, as you know, is so important. So I don't think it's as hard. It's just that, here's the thing: energy is energy is energy.
Mm.
Vibration is vibration. And, you're in Australia right now. I'm here right now, but I feel a connection. I feel your energy. So I don't think it's as necessarily as hard as some people might perceive it to be. Um, I know years ago, God, 6 years ago, roughly, um, the idea of me doing this kind of thing that we're doing now, or a session via Zoom or the phone, I was so dead set against it because I had this limiting belief that it had to be in person in order to be effective and to have this connection. But I think it's so much easier now because everyone's used to it. It's so second nature now.
Yeah.
So I think part of that fourth wall has completely come down.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. It's funny you talking about energy before because, I've never seen myself as being a spiritual person.
Yeah.
2019 version of Lawrence laughed in the face of spirituality. And yet there's been something about this pandemic that's actually brought it. This year, I feel for me, has been a year of spirituality. And part of that has been the understanding about energy.
Mm-hmm.
It's funny you say, talk about the energy there. And I was saying to people, one of the things I noticed was the difference from the energy in the room to the energy online. And it was a very noticeable difference. And the more I explored that notion, the more I began to recognize, obviously there is energy in our body. There's electricity that does go through our body. If you're into the paranormal, there's a belief there that that's energy as well. And I began to recognize this whole concept of energy, even when someone who's quite toxic walks in a room, people say you can feel the negative energy that comes with that. And so it's been a fascinating year for me in terms of spirituality, getting my head around the fact that spirituality isn't religion, although for some it can be.
Right.
But it is more about this notion of energy and who we are energetically and how we connect energetically.
Right. And to me, I really think that is what spirituality is. It's nothing more than connection. And connecting in a way that isn't always physical.
Yeah, I agree with that. And in fact, I often say that when I'm feeling like I'm not right, that something's not going on, I use the term disconnected. I feel disconnected from things.
Absolutely.
And, so I completely agree with what you're saying there.
I'm good. I'm glad.
Yeah. And people listening is going, are they going to get to the point? That's
No.
Okay. Nope. Welcome to our conversation.
We're going down the rabbit hole, people. So come on.
Let's speak about some mutual friends of ours. And I'm referring in this instance to the wonderful Dan Kendall and Michael Charlotte.
Love them. Miss them.
Now, when they were here training, was it last year or the year? It was last year, wasn't it? It feels like a lot longer,
doesn't it? Oh,
one of the people that they talked about a few times during the training was you. And you were given as an example of someone who did the training right.
Well, good. I'm glad.
Someone who just seemed to be able to take that training and to run with it in a completely unique way. So I'd love to, because for those who don't realize what Dan and Michael specialize in, it's stage hypnosis. which to me is next level confidence stuff there. So can you tell me a bit about your experience first coming up with your stage hypnosis persona act, which is so unique but so perfectly you, and what that experience was like for you to do that?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, again, copious amounts of alcohol. No, I'm kidding.
Harder on stage.
Yeah, we just level it up.
Yeah, it's just coffee, people. Yeah,
just coffee with a little Vicodin. It's fun. Look that way. Yeah. So I've always wanted to do stage hypnosis, but again, petrified of it, but wanting to do it. And I think, those things that we are scared of, but have that inkling of wanting to do, we need to do those because it helps us, it pushes us, it makes us grow. And so, and I love Dan, I love Michael, they are my brothers like you are. I just love them to death. And so I knew that learning stage hypnosis, I cannot go to anyone other than Dan and Michael. And my God, if anyone gets the chance to train with them on anything that they teach, I mean, don't think about it, just here's
it is
my
exceptional.
Yeah. And so anyway, so I did their stage hypnosis training. It was fantastic. I'm a big person who, if I want to do something, but I don't know how to do it, once I get the how-to and the tools, I'm hitting the ground running, and I will start implementing these things right away. So once I got the information from them, I was like, let's do it. Boom, boom, boom. And my background is in theater, and my main background is in street theater, performing at Renaissance festivals and different historical events. And I noticed that, and I don't know if you have anything like that over there where you are, but over here, it's kind of a big thing. It's all over the country. But I was noticing very few fairs, maybe a handful of them, had any stage hypnotists. And I'm like, well, crap, this would be a great way for me to combine everything that I love to do a historical stage hypnosis presentation at some shows. And the one thing I did notice about the ones that were doing it, and not to knock them by any means, they're doing wonderful stuff, but they didn't change their show in many respects to fit the theme that they were presenting. So there was a lot of modern stuff in there. And I'm like, well, that's stupid. There's so much great stuff that you could play with here. So what I do a completely fairy tale, historical from the Renaissance period stage hypnosis show. So that's kind of how it's different. And it's a blast. And I might add, the very first, no one can complain about doing anything anymore, because the very first stage hypnosis show I did practically blind, because it was right after my eye surgery. Yeah.
Oh, right. You mean actually literally blind, and not
literally
as in like
blind. Yeah, literally blind.
Yeah.
I had.
I thought you were talking about that alcohol again. It's like,
yeah. Well, no. I had 2 retina detachments. And
I remember that. Yes.
Yeah, you remember that. It was horrible. And I had my very first stage show coming up, and I'm like, oh my God, I'm going to have to cancel. Well, after doing what the doctor said and healing for how many months and whatever, they finally cleared me. And they said, okay, we'll allow you to do the show, but you need to have people helping you set everything up and getting ready. We don't want you moving your chairs. You can do the show, but as soon as you're done with the show, you have to lay face down again, and then get up, do your show, then go lay face down again.
Right.
And I did this. It was crazy. And so I literally did the show with one eye, because my eye over here was completely clouded over. I couldn't see anything out of this eye.
Wow.
So there's no excuses.
No, because
the show must go on.
I'm thinking, if I was to do a stage hypnosis show, there would be a little bit of me in my own head, let alone trying to remember the format for the first time I'm doing it, as well as watching my participants to see who we could work with and who may not be as useful to work with. That's remarkable.
But you know what? I had that fear too when I was going through Dan and Michael's class. I remember saying to them, how are we going to know which ones to keep, which ones to leave? And we went to Mark Savard's stage hypnosis show that night, and I was sitting next to Dan, and I remember saying to him, he's going to get rid of that one, that one, and that one, right? And he goes, yep. You can just tell.
Yeah.
You just know, you know? So you just know.
Mm.
It's not, I mean, it's hard, but it's not as hard as a lot of people think in terms of, because here's the thing, like Michael and Dan said, you know how to hypnotize.
Yeah.
You know how to hypnotize. This is just a different venue. That's all.
I think you know what it is potentially that there's an increased fear of failure that goes on in an environment like that. You know, it's very much when you're in a hypnosis, hypnotherapy session, you know, we might experience a similar level if it's something like stop smoking, where if they turn around and say, I haven't stopped smoking, you go, I'm terrible.
Right.
But, you know, when it's a stage hypnosis show and you're asking them to, you know, give birth on stage like Dan did to my partner.
Did you get that on film?
We did. Yes, I'll show you later. Yes.
Oh, yes.
Yes. Emma helped my partner give birth to it as well. Even better. Yeah. But, you know, what if they don't do what you want them to do? And I think that's why there's that increased resistance from people to do that. I see stage hypnosis as being an extraordinary hypnosis skill to develop a master.
It really is, you know, and, you know, to borrow a phrase that Helen Midas always says, if this is what you're supposed to do, how can you fail?
Yeah.
And through those failures, you're going to learn how to adjust and how to tweak as well. So, and I've found that not a lot, but there's some certain aspects of stage hypnosis that you can bring into clinical, and there's clinical aspects you can bring into stage.
Yeah.
So it's a beautiful blend when you know how to do it.
Yeah, I agree. Speaking of Helen, you know, that was such a Helen quote as well that you offered there. It's so perfectly her. But, you know, she also mentioned recently in one of her posts how you were someone who, as soon as you know what to do, you hit the ground running. And you mentioned that before yourself.
Yeah.
What do you think? Not so much what do you think, how do you think you are able to do that, to have that kind of confidence and tenacity, I guess?
Right.
Or gusto. Geez, I need a thesaurus
Copious amount of alcohol.
I need a thesaurus right now. What is it that you do to help produce those kind of results? Because again, if people could bottle that and have a shot of Mark in the morning, I'm sure they would.
Ooh. Maybe it would get rid of COVID. Maybe, I don't know. You know, for me, again, everything comes back down to theater for me.
Yeah.
It's stepping into the character. Really, it's stepping into the character, because the Mark that you're seeing right now isn't this exuberant, energy, bubbly, happy all the time. You know, in my everyday life, I swear like a sailor, and I
had never noticed.
I know, and I'm more of an introvert than what's presented, and I'm really picky on the people I surround myself with and who I actually like. So you made the cut, so good for you.
As a fellow introvert, I think that might have something to do with it. So.
Right, exactly. I'm definitely an extroverted introvert. So, but for me, it's remembering my higher calling and my higher mission as to why I'm doing this and who I'm serving. And if I am not X, Y, and Z, I can't serve them.
Yeah.
And it's thinking about those different qualities and those different characteristics that that healer and that hypnotist and that coach has to have, and that I want it to have, that I have to pour into another version of myself and actually literally step into. Just like stepping into the character of a stage hypnotist. It's the same thing.
It's the act as if frame, isn't it, really?
It's the act as if, 100%, absolutely. You know, and really looking at the people, you know, like you, like Dan, like Mike, like Helen, like so many, I mean, just a grab bag of hypnotists and coaches. that you want to be like, that you
Mm.
aspire to be like, that helps to motivate you along and to give you that drive and to give you that tenacity,
Mm.
because it shows that people are out there doing good work. And I'm a type of person that I want to add value with whatever I do. And so it's seeing that there's others there that are doing it and that it's possible, and striving for that. Do
Yeah.
you fail along the way? Sure you do.
Yeah, of course you do.
Absolutely.
Mm.
But you learn from it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Hopefully.
I think this is the key thing. How do people learn to embrace failure and
Hmm.
to not be afraid of it, but to kind of go, this is an opportunity to learn and to develop and to experience something different.
Right. Well, and failure, I think too, it lights a fire, at least on me, it lights a fire under you to motivate you to do better or change things in order to have whatever it is that you want. Don't change the dream, change how you go about getting the dream. Like I remember, um, before I met Helen, my business was completely failing. I literally was at the point of, I'm going to have to close my doors and get a real job. And it was taking a look at that and going, okay, well, what do I need here to
Mm.
fix this failure? And it really, looking back, hindsight is 2020, no pun intended, but looking back on it now, it really wasn't a failure. It was the springboard that forced me to level up myself and level up my business and find the people and find the resources that I needed in order to grow,
Yeah.
both personally and professionally.
I think this nicely goes into generally the two last questions I like to ask. The
Oh, we're at
first
the
one,
end.
the first one being, and this is a standard question that we use in therapy often, but if you can imagine you going back in time to go and see Mark when he was first starting out as a hypnotherapist, what advice do you think you would offer him now that would be of the best value?
Hmm. Hmm, hmm, hmm. Um, Definitely, don't be afraid of investing in yourself
Hmm.
and in your business. I know when I was first starting out, I was terrified to invest in myself, terrified to invest in my business, terrified to even really believe that it could be more than what it was.
Mm.
Um, so don't be afraid to invest in yourself. And if there is, and along with that, to trust your gut as well. I think so many people are just trying to do what everyone else is doing, and they don't realize that it doesn't necessarily work that way for you.
Yeah.
So trust your gut when something feels right versus when something doesn't feel right. Again, it's that energy thing.
Hmm.
And don't be afraid to modify and to change and grow. Um, so yeah, I mean, I don't know if that, I mean, that was kind of a bunch of stuff right in all in
That's
there,
okay.
but yeah. And there was another point was, I think really don't be afraid to celebrate along the way.
Yeah.
I think so many of us are just constantly reaching for the next thing and reaching for the next thing, and we don't take time to celebrate.
Hmm.
We don't take time to rest. We don't take time out to honor where we're at in the moment.
Mm.
And it gets lost. And when you get past that, that I think can lead to you beating yourself up, going, oh, that wasn't as good as it should have been, or what I
Mm.
wanted it to be, or oh, you know what, that was amazing, I should have celebrated that, but I went on to the next thing and whatever. So it's just, I think, honoring where you're at as well while continuing to move forward.
Yeah. I think that's great advice. The last question, and it's a bit of a twist on this.
Okay.
We're going 10 years into the future.
I hate this question. Go ahead.
What does Mark 2030 have to say as advice for Mark 2020?
Ooh, man. Um, hate these 5-year, 10-year questions. I really do.
Maybe the
Because
advice then is to tell people that give you
honestly,
these questions to shut
oh,
up.
well, it's I don't know. Well, and it's kind of ironic and funny now because like 5 year ago, Mark would have been like, where are you going to be in 5 years? Oh, I'll be in Australia teaching again. I'll be doing this again. And now it's 2020 and we're all screwed. Who knows what's going to happen?
It's like at the start of the year when I said to someone, geez, wouldn't you have hated to create a 5-year plan 4 years ago?
Exactly.
Feel like, ah!
Exactly. Yeah, 100%. Let's see. Okay, so we're talking what, 5 years, 10 years in the future, right? Okay, looking back to now, I think one of the things that I personally need to remember, and I also think it's important for everyone else to remember, is that whatever rough thing is happening right now, we are going to get past it.
Yeah.
It is going to be better. Things will get easier. And, personally, professionally, whatever, you are going to be in a better place.
In fact, you're going to be in a better place with more online digital skills.
Exactly. I already have a little bit more of that now.
Yeah. Thank you, 2020. You're welcome.
Thank you. 2020 honestly is not all bad. It's not all.
I agree. I actually think people are going to reflect back on this year, and we all know that significant change doesn't come from staying in the same routine.
Right.
And while we've had challenges this year, absolutely, I think that it's been manageable enough to put people just outside their comfort zone, but to still largely be okay. And of course, I say that, mindful of the fact that there are people out there who have lost loved ones.
Right.
There's a lot going on in this world. But I think people are going to look back on this year and think this was a year where I had to push outside my comfort zone and really had to grow.
Well, and, I think about myself. Right. Yeah. And I think about myself, I'm the type of person that I am so loyal to people and jobs and things that I should have left a long time ago. And I literally, the whole world had come crashing down in order to make me move out of a situation that I had outgrown. And so, nature is a wonderful thing in a lot of respects, because it's kind of doing that for a lot of people right now with 2020. And even like you said, the people who have lost people, that's horrible. And I wish that wouldn't happen. But you know what? I think this is showing not only those people, but really all of us, how resilient we all actually are. It shows us what we're made out of and how strong we are and what we can do and accomplish.
This year I think has really highlighted again that fundamental truth that the only thing that we can control are our own thoughts and our own behaviors. And even then I question, do we really have control of our own thoughts and our own behaviors?
Right.
But it really does highlight that whole notion of surrendering and acceptance and letting go. And I think that, this year has really had people trying to hold on to the way things have been done in the past and struggling. So I think that this year, if they've learned how to surrender, learned how to accept, then this has been a really powerful year.
Absolutely. And I think, I think a lot about this too, that, it's something I teach people in the programs I do with them, is that you can think of things in two different ways. You can think of them in the worst way or the best way. And if you think of them in the worst way, all you're going to do is perseverate on the problem. It's just going to make it harder, and you're going to get more of that junk you don't want. But if you think of it in the best way, you're going to start pulling up those solutions. You're going to start pulling up those ideas and those dreams. And sure, things happen outside of our control, like a flippin' pandemic. But no matter what happens, when you get to that point of dealing with it, you're going to deal with it. And you're going to have to make a choice of which way you're going to deal with it, the best way or the worst way. And if we can start acclimating ourselves around that idea of, okay, this is out of my control, but you know what? I'm going to have to handle it. I'm going to handle it the best way I possibly can, and it's going to be okay.
It's interesting when we talk about people being stuck as well, because you mentioned that at the start of the thing. For me, I often find that means that they've been paralyzed by indecision. And quite often I remind people that doing nothing is still a decision.
Right.
That it begins to hopefully shift that paradigm of what they're stuck in.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. And I've had clients like that too, where they have been like that. And I'm just like, I'm such a decision person. Just do it. That I have actually told clients, just make a decision. I don't care what decision you make at this point, but make it. Because guess what? You're steering the boat. You can turn the rudder if that decision is not working for you. You don't have to stay with that choice.
Absolutely.
And at any given time, we have trillions of choices. We just have to be open to seeing them and choosing something.
Speaking of trillions of choices, if you go on Amazon, there is no shortage of great books that you can read. However, I do know that there's one particular one that's gone on Amazon in recent times that is absolutely worth reading. And I believe that you are a published author now.
Oh, yeah.
Wasn't
wait, where are we going with this?
Wasn't a nice segue? Did you like that? I thought it was quite clever.
Beautiful.
How I segued that. So
that was good. You should do like a podcast or something.
So, for those who might be interested, tell us a bit about your book.
Well, I happen to have it right here. If we
there it is. Yep.
My flipping green screen.
Yep.
But yeah, so this is hypnotic Ho'oponopono.
Mm-hmm.
And it is the technique that I work with people. Some people have asked, is it just for practitioners or can anyone get it? I say anyone. It's primarily written for practitioners to have it to use with their clients, but honestly, it's pretty self-explanatory and step-by-step. So if anyone just goes through the steps, they can do this for themselves because after all, everyone hypnotizes themselves anyways.
Yeah, exactly.
So, but yeah, I mean, that's been one nice thing about 2020. I've published stuff. So, there's good things there too. And it's and it's crazy because writing a book is something that I've always wanted to do, but I'm like, who the heck am I to write a book? And how do you write a book? And oh my God, it's crazy. But honestly, when you break it down, you just start with a sentence. You start with a sentence and then it becomes a paragraph and the paragraph becomes a chapter and pretty soon you have a whole book.
Yep.
And it doesn't matter if it's good. You just go back through and edit and tweak once it's done to make it better and better and better. It's just getting it out there and making it.
Are you thinking of a Christmas edition? Because if you are, can I suggest you call it the Ho 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 Pono Pono edition?
I like that. And you know what's funny? Last Christmas, so every year at Christmas, our family does a big Christmas party and a Christmas game where we exchange gifts and things like that. Well, last year, my cousins put me in charge of it. And I said, okay, if I'm in charge of it, I'm hypnotizing everyone. So I did So I did a Christmas themed hypnosis stage show for my family. It was the first time many of them had ever seen any hypnosis ever. And I called it the Ho 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 Hypnosis Show.
What's funny is that I generally spend Christmas with my sister and brother-in-law. And my brother-in-law is a hypnotist. And we've never thought of doing this. I should suggest this to Sid and say,
you should.
Let's do this. Yeah.
My uncle thought he was a 5-year-old boy and everyone in the room was Santas whose lap he had to sit on. It was hilarious.
My brother-in-law can sometimes act like a 5-year-old boy, so that would probably
it's not a stretch then.
Mark,
you should do it.
I should do it. I think I might suggest it. Mark, thank you so much for your time today to chat about this. I'm hoping everyone's come away from this with a couple of nuggets of wisdom and an abundance of love for you. And awkward silence there. Like, okay, if they do, great. If they don't,
whatever. I love that regardless. No.
Thank you so much for everyone listening and watching. Thank you for tuning in again, and we'll see you next time.
Awesome. Thank you so much.